one thing was while I was working for an employer, I still made sure that I understood I was a brand within that company.
Mm-hmm.
Anything and everything I was doing within that community and in that company, I thought about how is that impacting my brand. If there were opportunities to connect with other people, I was definitely promoting the company that I was working with, but I was also promoting myself. I was building relationships that I knew that come what may, those relationships would last. I would still be known for my work. So that's one thing that's very important in terms of the day-to-day practicalities is asking yourself, how can I make sure that this work that I'm doing also works for the brand that I'm building as a person? Right?
Absolutely. Hey, I'm Tine Siyanbade, your pivot and pay strategist. I help Black women double their income by leveraging their existing skills. I am all about getting Black women paid, whether you're an employee or a business owner. And you're listening to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. Let's go. Hello and welcome to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. I am Tine Siyanbade, your pivot and pay strategist. I am so stinking excited for today's guest, Miss Temi Siyanbade. I wanna jump right in because I'd love for you all to hear what she has to say. So I'll start with a quick intro and we'll bring her on in. Temi Siyanbade is an attorney, speaker, entrepreneur, and author of the upcoming book, Show, Don't Tell: How Lawyers Can Use Video to Stand Out, Create More Value, and Revolutionize Their Firms, early 2025. As the principal attorney of her boutique Houston-based law firm, the founder of Elevated Esquire, a coaching and branding consultancy, and the host of multiple video podcasts, including The Elevated Esquire and Ask Temi Live, Temi's work focuses on strategically positioning businesses for long-term success, meaningful impact, and innovative business development. Temi empowers CEOs, founders, and legal professionals to challenge mindsets and rethink business leadership in today's ever-changing global economy using compelling stories and actionable frameworks. Temi is passionate about inspiring lifelong learning and combating socioeconomic disparities in minority communities. When Temi is not helping people build successful businesses or exploring the latest legal tech and video tools, she's listening to music, trying out new restaurants, and reading leadership books, and spending time with her family and friends. And without further ado, welcome, Miss Temi. Hello. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing so well. So excited to be here on the podcast today. Can't wait to get into this conversation.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you again for agreeing to join us. I'm
Thank
so
you for
excited.
having me.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I know that you help entrepreneurs with is the legal aspect of things. So, leveraging legal tools to protect and scale your business. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. As Black women, as Black people and Black women specifically, we are creators, we are innovators, we are leaders, and there's so much that we bring to the world. And there's one element with regards to understanding how that works in our world, and that's the law, right? So I always talk about when I think about in disenfranchised communities and people who make a difference, it's never been a matter of creation. It's never been a matter of adding value. We've always done that. But what
Sure.
has oftentimes been used against us and weaponized against us is the law, right?
Mm.
Not understanding how to navigate it, not understanding how to kind of monitor the changes and see how it's being used. And so my goal in terms of leveraging legal tools, going through that landscape, navigating that is to help empower us to be able to really leverage it and add it to our toolkit essentially,
Mm.
because we're already doing the creating, we're already doing the innovating, we're already doing the leading, we're already doing so many other things.
Right.
Let's make sure that this one tool is also being leveraged to the full capacity. So that's kind of my why behind,
Sure.
why we do this.
Yeah, so if someone here is listening in or watching us on YouTube and they're saying, "Oh my gosh, I don't even know where I would start with legal, like you said, legal, and my eyes glazed over. I don't even know. I don't know what I don't know. Do I need an LLC? Do I need to be getting trademarks? Like where do you what guidance do you give to someone who is so new to the legal aspect of things to on where to start?
Oh, I love that question. And I'm going to keep it really simple. Whenever someone comes to meet with me, new clients, I tell them about what we call in our firm the ICE approach. And those are three things that we like to help people make sure that they have created or put in place in order to grow. So I stands for intellectual property. That's your trademarks, your copyrights, your patents, your trade secrets. Do you have the things in place to protect that? C stands for contracts. So those are the relationships that you have with people. Do you have the right contractual protections between you and your vendors, between you and your employees, between you and even the people who come and visit your website? If you put the right documentation in place, right? And then E is for entity. So that's when we're talking about your LLCs, your corporations. What does that mean with regards to taxation and things like that? Now, there are other things that people should also consider, and we talk about insurance, but that's not something I provide. But at the most foundational level, you're going to hear us talk about your intellectual property, your contracts, and your entity.
Oh, I love that so much. I love that you broke it down it so simply too, right? ICE is easy to remember. And those three things, as you describe them, definitely sound like the most important place to start, right? And so many of us overlook those things, right? We put up a website and we don't even realize if you're going to have people purchasing from you on that website, you need some terms and conditions. You need some, some protections
Exactly.
and things like that. And that's something that is very easy for the legal layperson to miss.
To overlook, and we want to make sure that we keep those things simple. And because the thing is that there was a quote I came across earlier in my career, and it was about the maker of Cliff Bars. If you're in good foods and outdoors enthusiast, you might be familiar with them. I'm not. I came across I came across it as a story, so it's not because I'm out here eating Cliff Bars and being healthy. Not at all. I like potato chips. But the creator of that was reflecting on some of his challenges as he grew his business to a multi-million dollar business. And he says that people prepare you for failure, but nobody prepares you for success. And what he realized is that as he grew, there were certain foundational tools that he didn't have. He had a partner and he didn't have the right agreements in place with them. So when he wanted to move one direction, the partner wanted to move in another direction. He had to spend thousands of dollars kind of navigating that.
Yeah.
People will build brands and not have any type of trademark protection and then find out that they are accidentally, it's not even intentional, but they're accidentally using a name that's already existed. And now they have to spend the money to rebrand. Maybe they have to pay this other person back. They have to go and seek out legal services that are going to be more expensive to fix rather than to put those initial things in place. So it's all of that kind of keeping in mind, like what happens if you grow? Right? Things become
Mhm.
more risky. You want to make sure that those foundations are established so that as you scale, so that as you grow, you're able to do that and still keep your eyes on the prize, on your area of genius, without having to go back and fix this and fix that.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh, I love that. And so many of us focus on the what if I fail? What if this doesn't work? What if I've got to go back to my day job? All those what if I fail? I love that. What if you succeed? You want to have those protections in place because we are building our businesses to be multi-million dollar businesses. That's why we're here. Right? We
Exactly.
are here to have successful businesses, and not if, when we scale, we're going to need those protections in place. And I also love that you emphasize the high cost of not setting it up properly to begin with, right? The going back when you realize you needed it 3 years ago is way more
Yes.
expensive than investing in it up front and setting up what you need.
Absolutely. There's the founder of Blavity. She speaks about it on her podcast sometimes about how much she had to spend in order to go back and fix things when she was ready to go out and get investors, and how
Mhm.
she had to go and find new legal services because what she did before was just she was trying to, save the dollar, but she ended up spending so much more time, money, and effort. And so that's my big thing. It's my father used to say prevention is better than cure. Right. And so
Mhm.
I provide services on the prevention side.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, I love that. I feel like we all have our wise Yoruba fathers always giving us little proverbs and tidbits, but that one
Yes. Yeah.
That is excellent. Um, well, and I know you also you help folks maximize their profitability through strategic positioning, and I'm wondering what does it mean when you talk about strategic positioning?
Oh, I love that. It's some of the stuff that we just discussed in terms of being able to scale, and making sure that you have those legal foundations in place. But then one of the things that I often work with other professionals about, namely in the legal space, right? A lot of legal professionals is what it means to have impact and really have a brand that resonates. So you want to make sure you have the technical, again, trademarks and things in place. But what are you doing to create a brand that stands out? Right. So I think about them as often being hand in hand.
Mhm.
Making sure that when people see your name, they associate it with a specific thing. I'll say it this way. When you're going through, for example, the trademark process, right? If you have a name similar to someone else's, the government is
Yeah.
going to say, we're not going to provide legal protections for that because somebody else already has this established.
Right.
But the other thing that I always allow my clients, I bring it up to the forefront of my clients' minds, is I'm like, here's the other thing. I don't want my clients to confuse my services with someone else's, right? I want
Right.
to be so distinct in the way that I position myself, the way that I present myself, whatever means and methods that I do it, where my clients know that if they're looking for me, they find me. They're not going to
Mm,
accidentally find someone else who is trying to be me or copycat. No, I want to be that distinct where it's like she's the one. And so it's about figuring that out. And for legal professionals, professionals in general, I think leveraging video in this day and age is one of those tools where
mhm.
nobody can really duplicate you. I know we have a lot going on with AI and things like that, but it ain't there yet. And there will be legal protections against that.
Right.
And so you showing up, you showing your face, you making that connection with the people in front of you is part of establishing your authority. It's part of allowing people to say, hey, I know you. And it's part of creating that unique mark, right? It just is part of that whole ecosystem. There's a person I follow, his name is Daniel Priestley, and he talks about becoming a key person of influence. And he describes having an ecosystem of tools and intellectual property and things that you've created that sets you apart in your industry so that people know that this is how you add value. This is the person to go on and to speak to. And so that's one of the things that I try and help, guide professionals on. How can you talk about things in a unique way? What's your unique framework that you bring to this? It could be the way that you teach. That's really my unique angle. I know that I
Right.
have a teaching background, I can break things down. But what is the thing that you're doing? And how are you showing up in a unique way so that people want and know your voice?
Mm. Oh, I love that. And, when I work with clients, I help Black women who are full time employees and are working towards moving into entrepreneurship. And one of the biggest challenges is realizing that they are the brand, right?
Yeah.
You are the brand. You are the reason people are coming to you, right? Your services are there, but you are the brand. And so I love that you talk about, video and getting your face out there and really saying, this is me. I'm the thing you're coming for, right? Right? Because
Absolutely.
yeah, because I can
And
Google how do I start a business. People are coming to me because of the unique way that I present it, or because of my personality, and because they relate to and so it is you are the brand. And I love that you emphasize that. Um,
can I want to jump in and add a few practical things that I want people in the workforce who are pivoting to keep in mind. I'm
yes,
gonna join
please.
in a few since those are the women, a lot of the women that are listening. I've been in that exact same situation and same place where you're working for someone, but you're still building your thing and you're
Mhm.
trying to slowly make sure that it stands, right? Here are the few things that I remember that I feel have really been valuable for me. One thing was while I was working for an employer, I still made sure that I understood I was a brand within that company.
Mhm.
Anything and everything I was doing within that community and in that company, I thought about how is that impacting my brand. If there were opportunities to connect with other people, I was definitely promoting the company that I was working with, but I was also promoting myself. I was
Mm,
building relationships that I knew that come what may, those relationships would last. I would still be known for my work. So that's one thing that's very important in terms of the day-to-day practicalities is asking yourself, how can I make sure that this work that I'm doing also works for the brand that I'm building as a person? Right?
absolutely.
Now, the second thing I'm going to bring to mind is more of a practical consideration from a contractual place, right? When you're working for someone else, there should be an employment contract in place.
Mhm.
Pay attention to the language in that employment contract. Pay attention to what they say with regards to intellectual property. Pay attention to what they say with regards to time that you're spending. You're probably going to want to make sure that you are very, very careful about how you divide your time and how you separate whatever it is that you're doing for yourself from your business. So I advise people, don't use the company computer to do your own work. Don't do your side hustle stuff while you're on the clock if possible. Make sure there's a clear distinction between
Mhm.
those two things. I always like to reference a story. And I mean, there's been some changes in the law. One good thing is that it looks as though non-compete agreements are no longer enforceable. That's a new law that was established. They used to hold people back.
Yeah.
But there's a lady named Haley Page. She is a wedding designer, and she grew an amazing online following on social media with her wedding dress designs while she was working for a particular company. When it came time for them to renegotiate her terms, maybe 5, 10 years into their agreement or into this work relationship, she didn't find them to be valuable to her. So she said she was leaving the company. When she left
Mhm.
the company, they said that they had rights to her social media platforms,
Wow.
and she had to go litigate. I mean, she has millions of followers. For years, Haley Page was not allowed to use her own name, her own
Wow.
Instagram, because of the contract that was in place
Mhm.
when she was hired in her early 20s. Like, so now she's finally just last year given the right to kind of go back and use that. But I always caution people to pay attention to stories like this, and make sure that you're careful, because you don't want there to be any confusion as to what it is that you own and what you've created. You don't want anyone to come back and say, actually, this is ours because of X, Y, and Z. So
Yeah.
those are my two big things that I just wanted to make sure I put out there for people who are in that unique space, because they can be often overlooked, and I don't want that to happen to anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one thing that sometimes when folks are looking to move into contracting for similar work that they do in their day job, there's also a temptation to keep it a secret from the company. And it's like, no, find out what the rules are and follow those
Mhm.
rules. Because if you are a secret business, who's going to find you? Right? You can't
Yeah,
market a secret business. You can't market a business
facts.
while you're trying to make sure your company doesn't find out. And so, but I love that you frame it as you are the brand even within the work you're doing at the company, and you're building that brand to take with you regardless of whether you stay at that company or not. Those relationships, the quality of your work, those things are going to come with you. I
Yeah.
love that. And I wanted to touch on something you mentioned a while back, and I just want to make sure I highlight it for folks. You mentioned if your name is similar to someone or your brand is similar to someone else, that you don't want people coming to you thinking they're getting the other thing. And that's just such a great point. That like you don't want someone to come up, oh, you're that Teen Zekas? Oh, I thought you were this, right? Like nobody, nobody wants
Yeah,
that. So right, you want to be really distinct, and it's. I thought that was such a great point. I wanted to go back and highlight it and make sure folks
absolutely.
were noting that as well.
Because sometimes people get inspired by other brands, right? And they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna do." And I understand inspiration. It's beautiful. It's lovely. But I mean, there are different elements. So there's the side that we just discussed, where if you're inspired and you create something so similar to the other person that people can't tell the difference between the two, that's not actually anything different in the marketplace. It's going to be harder for you to stand out.
Hmm.
The other thing that I often talk to people about is, imagine, because most of the time people are now in my office. They have spent money to come and meet with me. We're
Yeah,
navigating this and, trying to give them advice. And I know how much my clients spend in order to, secure certain assets and things like that.
sure.
Imagine you're in those shoes. You've spent the money, the time, the effort. You've done the marketing. You've put yourself out there. You've made the connections. You've built the brand. It's out there, and you've paid the money. And now someone else wants to take advantage of what you've put the foundational work into.
Right.
How would you feel? We don't often think about it that way. I see a lot of stories where it's like, oh my God, this big old machine is picking on the smaller guy. And sometimes it is, for sure. And that's why I like people to be clear and thorough. But sometimes it's like, is that fair? for you to leverage what somebody else invested their time and
Mhm.
effort. It's not like you wouldn't want it. My clients would don't want that to happen because they know how much it's taken for them to build
Mhm.
the brands that they've had. So it's making sure you're standing out in the marketplace and then honoring the work that other people have done and respecting that
Yeah.
and kind of honoring it, paying it forward in the sense that I don't know if it's paying it forward or pre-anticipating wanting that same level of respect and dignity afforded to you when
Mhm.
you attain those levels of success.
Right. Right. Yeah. Build your own thing so that it's yours.
Yes.
It's yours.
Yes.
Absolutely. And then, right. And then you can take pride in that. And, I know that you are always working to empower Black women to thrive in their business through economic resilience. And I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit too. Like, what does economic resilience look like for business owners?
Oh, I love the way you phrase it too, economic resilience. If you hear me say that, I'm gonna have to remember that I got it from you because that is beautiful. That is gorgeous. But economic resilience is really if we're honest as Black women, the tables are not always placed in our favors, right? Like people, we have to be honest that some people are targeting us, targeting our success. It's just a fact at this point. When I look at things that have happened recently in the legal space when it comes to venture capital, and trying to stop Black women from getting access to things that they're already struggling to get access to, I've
Right.
become more, concerned and more also not aware, but more convinced of how important it is for us to be really intentional. So, what does
Yeah.
this look like? It means like, again, understanding the legal implications of things, right? Ownership is everything in this country. And it's not necessarily that you should never, we have businesses that buy it, that grow and then eventually sell. That's beautiful. That's leveraging what they own. But really understanding what it means to own your work, own your company, own your thing, right? And
Mhm.
then once we've built and we're building and we're scaling, I want us to take it to the next level in terms of resilience. What are the things we're putting in place to make sure our wealth lasts? Right?
Mhm.
We're in a new season where I think more than ever we have more wealthy Black women, more women who are reaching the pinnacle of success, who are doing the thing. You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah.
love it for us. And now it's like, what do we need to put in place to make sure it lasts? And it's like making sure your business lasts, business succession. Who are you? How are you transferring this business? So is it that you want to transfer it to people in your family? Is there an employee that you want to transfer it to? Do you want to sell? Have you thought about those elements? It's about
Mhm.
your legacy as a business owner and as a leader. And in terms of even your family, if something were to happen to you, do you have the right legal tools in place to make sure that your kids get what you actually have worked so hard to have in place for them? I mean, I'll tell you, I went to a panel at an event. It was a conference for a community, and they were talking about generational wealth. And I was so excited to be there. And I saw that there was a real estate lawyer on the panel. There was an accountant on the panel. There was one other person. I stopped and I said, "Where's the estate planning attorney who knows literally about generational wealth? Like
Yeah.
that's what they do."
Right. Right.
Because again, we're making the money, we're doing the thing, we are the CEOs, CFOs of all these large companies across the globe.
Mhm.
Our we're making our mark, but we want it to last.
Yes.
How do we build that resilience? We build that resilience with knowledge. We build that resilience by partnering with each other, with working with each other, and leveraging again looking at the playing field that we're at. Right. One of the companies that I worked with, I had an opportunity to work with people who are in the estate and legacy planning space. And I saw our counterparts and I saw the strategies that they were implementing. And I said, oh my goodness, why didn't
Mhm.
anybody tell me that this existed? Like, why didn't I know? And so as soon as since I've learned about these, I've been going back to people like, are we putting those things in place for our own families? Are we leveraging the different tax laws that exist? Are we leveraging the different estate planning rules and tools that exist in our different states and jurisdictions? That's where
Mhm.
economic resilience really becomes generational, right?
Yes. Yes. Well, and so much of the racial wealth gap is generational, right? That,
Exactly.
people are inheriting wealth, and the act of not losing it is very different than the act of building it up. So if you're doing the work to build it up, then you need to put in place what's going to keep it there. And And I love that you are so focused on legacy. I remember you were before we joined this conversation, you were describing a theme for this year. Do you want to tell us about that?
Absolutely. We're working this year with our clients with iconic legacies, right?
Mm,
So, what does it mean to stand out and endure, right? Enduring legacy. So, it's one thing to be an icon, it's one thing to build the thing, but we want it to last. I think about stories of people like Prince, right? Prince, it was an
mm,
icon. But when you hear about what happened after he passed and what happened to his estate, the same thing with Michael Jackson, right?
mm.
Aretha Franklin, we've heard different things, so we have these different stories about what happens after they pass. And these are icons, which is
Yeah.
powerful. They stand
Mm,
out, they made a difference, but we want to make sure that that difference endures the way that they would have wanted it to. That's the thing,
right.
right? This is what we're working towards. This is what we all hope for. But we need to be intentional about it. And so this year, I'm working with my clients, and we're talking about iconic legacies, like from beginning to end. What does that mean in terms of personally within your family, right? So the leadership that you have as a mother, as a wife, has even a sister, right? I don't have any children, but there's a legacy that I'm building with my family, right?
Right.
What things that I need to put in place? What are the things that help me have that impact for my family? I want to give you another story. I was talking to a legal colleague of mine years ago when I first got started. And we're talking about debt because, law school, not the cheapest thing. And I went to her place, and she had this beautiful home that she had been able to, buy, and it was just gorgeous. And she's not a woman of color. And we were talking, and she goes, "Well, I was lucky enough that my grandmother left me a sizable inheritance. So I didn't have to take out any student loans to get my legal degree."
Whew.
And I that that woo,
Whew.
that's
Yeah.
how I
That's
felt, because
yeah.
I realized that so many of us, again, we go to the schools, we become the doctors, we become the lawyers, we become the brand specialists, we become the thing that our parents told us to do, but we're not on the same playing field. It's
Right.
just not the same. I know what I have to do to get out of the debt that law school has left me in. It's not the same playing field, but it's like,
Mm,
okay, now I'm onto, like, that's what they've done for their kids. Can we do the same for ours? Right?
yes.
Building out the firm, building out whatever it is you're building. How can you make sure that your kids can have those same stories and start their race a little bit more ahead than we did?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Black women especially, we are the most educated and have the most student debt, right, of any
Yeah.
group, and that
Yeah.
that's so, so real, and I love that you also mentioned legacy planning for people who don't have kids. I think a lot of folks, when they hear talking about this legacy stuff, they think, "Well, if I don't have kids, then, what's the point?" But we still have community, we still have family, and there are other ways to establish that legacy besides, exclusively thinking about our own children.
And I would even say for single people, for people who are unmarried, it's something that we should probably prioritize even more. There are default rules in every single state with regards to how decisions are made and how things are passed on. So
Mm,
there's two elements to this. There's if you pass away, right? If you pass away, it's like what happens to your stuff. But also there's, because technology has changed, it's more likely that people have this weird in between stage before they pass on. People are
right.
able to live longer, but it's like, okay, how do you want to be taken care of if something were to happen to you? You don't have a spouse. So who do you want to make that decision? If you're
Mm,
not on the best terms with your parents, you might need to put some documentation in place that identifies who the individuals are in your life that you want to have the ability to make decisions concerning your body, make decisions concerning your property, make decisions concerning your money. Like, if those
mhm,
things are important to you, right? You want to be intentional, you have to prioritize legacy planning. It's not something to wait until you're sick. It's not something to wait because we don't know what could happen next, right?
right.
We don't know the future, and so it's important to put those things in place, whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you have kids or not. If you're in the place to be intentional about it so that you can actually ensure that your vision comes to pass, right?
Mhm,
Do the steps that are necessary. And these are the things that are necessary. Get the will in place, get the trust in place. You don't
yeah,
have to be a millionaire to to think about those things. You just have
yeah.
to be somebody who cares.
So, again, I'm gonna go back to the person who's listening and is overwhelmed. They hear you talking about this legacy stuff, and they're like, "I don't know where to start." Right. So if someone wants to get serious about legacy planning, what's sort of a good first step?
I always advise, there's a ton of resources online in terms of learning about some of these things and learning. The technical term you might hear people use is estate planning,
Hmm.
right? So look up information about estate planning, meet with a particular, an estate planning attorney. But I'll tell you, when it comes to foundational tools in an estate plan, this is what I usually recommend for people. First is a will. A will decide what happens to your things when you die. Now, wills are only for when people die. Your will is not going to say anything if you are in this state of a coma or anything like that. To deal with those elements, you will also need what we call an advance directive. An advance directive helps people tell you, you give a directive to your physicians, to the people who are taking care of your body as to what you would want to have happen. So, do you want to be put on life support? Do you want to just have care? And, do you not want that? What
Hmm.
are the specific things that you want with regards to that? You determine that, you express that, you communicate that through an advance directive. Some places call it living wills. Okay.
Hmm.
So that's what that is. The other thing that you'll want in place are power of attorneys. And there'll be two. There's one called a financial power of attorney that's dealing with your money, your bank accounts, and that gives somebody power to go ahead and control those things if anything were to happen to you. The other one is I said financial, the other one's your medical power of attorney. So
Yeah.
that one is with regards to your medical, situation. The final thing that I usually tell people is your HIPAA authorization. So if people have to make a decision about you, it's usually helpful to have access to your, health history. A
Sure.
HIPAA release will allow that. And then if you are trying to, depending on the state that you're in, some states have really complex probate processes, and that's like the court process to transfer things from one person to another, something were to happen to you. So we usually advise people to look into trust. Trusts bypass that process if they're done correctly. And
Mhm.
there are a whole bunch of different types of trusts. The more assets that you have, the more type of unique planning that you're going to need. And assets mean like the property that you have. So that might, like, if you own a business, your assets are more complicated because you own a business. But a trust can help facilitate that transfer. The other thing that's really unique about a trust is different from a will in that a trust doesn't come into play only when you die. A trust can actually come into play before anything happens to you. So once you work with an attorney to establish a trust, it's turned on. And what ends up happening is during the different stages of life, let's say something happens to you, it moves through different stages.
Mm.
So those are some of the foundational tools that you're going to want to explore when you're really establishing your legacy plan at whatever level.
Oh, thank you so much for that. That really, laid out, Google is your friend. We can look up these things, but make sure you're looking into, well, what are the rules for my state and those kinds of things. I'm so glad you brought that up. And before we let you go, I'd love to ask, where folks can reach you, how folks can follow you or get in contact with you if they want to know more.
Absolutely. So, in terms of following me on social media, I'm pretty active on my IG page. It's at TOS Legal. That's also my law firm's webpage. So www.toslegal.com. That's also Facebook and a lot of the other platforms. I have a very active YouTube channel as well, where I'm consistently putting out new information, teaching, giving that free information. It's available there. And then as a speaker and just some of my broader work, you can also find me at temisiyanbade.com. And that's where you'll find out more about all the different things I do, because I do a bit. So if you're like, okay, what's one, you can go to TOS Legal if you're focused primarily on the legal stuff. But if you also want to know about just like the legacy planning, the leadership, all of that other stuff, temisiyanbade.com will be your place for that.
Perfect. And we'll be sure to put all those links in the description as well. And I just want to thank you again, Temi, for sharing your wisdom with us and for all these gems. I'm definitely going to be going back and listening to the episode again to take notes.
I love it.
Yeah,
But
you
thank
were.
you for having me and thank you for creating this platform so that we can get this type of information out there. It's so critical, and platforms like this really do make a huge difference. So thank you for having me.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. All right. And thank you to all who joined us this episode. And we will see you in the next one. Hey, thanks for watching the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure you like and subscribe. And remember to hit the notification bell so you can catch more episodes like this one. And join the conversation by leaving a comment below. Be sure to share this channel with the incredible Black women in your life so we can continue getting Black women paid. All right, we'll see you in the next one.